Kia ora koutou. My name is Nick, and I'm the digital supervisor for the new Plymouth District Council's Cultural Experiences team. And today I'd like to tell you a quick story about a project that we worked on last year. So there's a well-known quote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." I'd always assumed, genuinely assumed this was a Homer Simpson quote, but Google says it's Seneca, some guy named Seneca. Anyway, I've always liked this idea that success isn't really about timing, it's also about quietly doing the work in the background to prepare you for when an opportunity arrives. At Puke Ariki Museum in New Plymouth, our small but mighty digital team had been quietly building capability in a technique known as photogrammetry, the process of creating 3D digital models from overlapping photographs. We've been experimenting for a couple of years, digitizing objects from our collections and uploading them to Sketchfab and to our Vernon Collections page, kind of refining the process as we went. This wasn't part of a formal project or in support of any major strategy, just something we were interested in and something we were luckily supported to pursue. So when we were contacted by the University of New England in Australia with a proposal to collaborate on a digital recreation of an object, we were happy to oblige. Not because we were experts, but because we'd already started preparing. Our collaboration began with an email from Mark Moore, archaeologist, researcher, and director of the Online Museum of Stone Tools. Mark was organizing an upcoming workshop in Samoa titled Rock, Paper, Scissors, which aimed to explore and revive traditional crafts in making and using basalt adzes. He was looking for an example of a hafted Samoan adze, which is an adze still bound to its wooden handle, and he was hoping to create a digital and physical replica using photogrammetry and 3D printing. He reached out to several museums in Australia and New Zealand with relevant objects in their collections, and we happened to have one, so we replied. And because we'd already been experimenting with 3D capture, we felt confident that we could help. Our early explorations and the time we spent experimenting and learning the process, it suddenly had a clear and meaningful purpose. To create the 3D model, my colleague Rosie Moyes and I drew on our existing experience, supported by detailed and advanced protocols provided by Mark and his team, Emma Watt and Mary Ann Stone. Great name for the project. Photogrammetry works by stitching together hundreds of overlapping photographs taken from different angles to generate a 3D surface. We captured over 200 high-resolution images using our DSLR cameras and following the instructions carefully. But the object itself presented new challenges for us. Unlike the collection items we'd experimented with before, which had simple, solid forms, this adze had loose fiber lashings and a long handle, which needed to be captured from two opposing sides. With photogrammetry, this usually means generating two separate models, or chunks, and then combining them. But the lashings shifted slightly during the process, which confused the software when it tried to align the two chunks. Sadly, our chunks refused to do the truffle shuffle. Our lighting and background setup, which had worked well for past objects, also contributed to issues with contrast and shadow, especially around the details in the binding. Fortunately, we were able to share our image files with Mark's team in Australia. Emma and Marianne worked intensively with our images using Adze-soft Metashape to align the photos, correcting any distortions, patching holes, and attempting to merge the two chunks into a seamless truffle shuffle. And this was a major takeaway for us. Even with powerful tools and detailed protocols, it was the craftsmanship, experience, and patience that ultimately got the model across the line. So despite the challenges, Emma and Marianne were able to produce a detailed and accurate 3D model of the adze. The next step was to bring it into the physical world through 3D printing. 3D printing works by depositing thin layers of material, one on top of the other, building up the shape of the object, and it's a slow and precise process. And after 23 hours on the printer bed in Australia, the replica was complete. Printed at full scale, this 3D model later traveled to Samoa to be used as a reference object during the rock, paper, scissors workshop. And being able to hold and study the 3D copy gave artisans a clearer understanding of the original shape, the proportions, the binding style, something that would have been far harder to understand from photos alone. In this new form, the Puke Ariki adze returned home to Samoa, not just as a replica, but as a guide. But the model didn't just travel to Samoa, it made its way back to us in New Plymouth. At Puke Ariki, our digital library team used the same file produced by the team in Australia to test our new in-house 3D printer. This was our very first trial run on the machine, and it worked. We ended up with a local copy of the adze, and with it, a boost in confidence and capability. What started as an international collaboration ended up strengthening our own internal workflows, helping us get familiar with a new tool. And while we were experimenting with this technology in Samoa, artisans at the rock, paper, scissors workshop were using the 3D model and modern tools to reconnect with ancestral adze-making practices. Different kinds of preparation, different kinds of tools, but in both places the work was about reconnecting with something meaningful and building on it. I began this talk with a quote from Homer's Seneca: "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." And this project revealed to us that impact often works the same way. We didn't set out to join a collaboration. We were just experimenting, learning, and building capability. And when the opportunity came, we were able to contribute. That contribution, photography, a model, a 3D print, and a set of shared skills became part of something larger. At the rock, paper, scissors workshop in Samoa, the 3D printed adze helped traditional artisans reconnect with knowledge that had faded from everyday use. And that's where the impact really landed, not in the tech, not in the photography, but in what it made possible in keeping traditional knowledge alive. So thanks to Mark and his team for the opportunity and the experience. And you can find out more about the Museum of Stone Tools on their website, so please reach out to them if you're interested in the work they're doing. And I encourage everyone here to experiment and explore new digital tools and new techniques, and you never know what opportunities will present themselves. Thank you very much.
And then finally, Nick, on 3D printing, we've got a few technical questions. Are there options for color 3D printing? Is there a reason you used photogrammetry and not white, blue light 3D scanning? These are questions that I don't know what they mean, but there's someone here who's going to be very excited by the answer.
Yeah, we don't have one of those. We had a camera. I'd be keen on, and I think really the emphasis of what I was trying to get across is just use what you have. I mean, you can make 3D models with your smartphone now, but I don't think if we didn't have a scanner. If we had a scanner, we wouldn't have made those new friends in Australia through that process. So color 3D printing, I think it depends on the material used, but there was it was actually a really great project at Auckland Museum that was presented here at NDF a few years ago. It's on a YouTube channel. The shags, they were 3D printing and modeling shags. I think they used a scanner for that, and that was one of the inspirations to try out that process. I think they were trying to encourage the shags to mate. The shags weren't shagging. Who remembers that?
Excellent. That's it for our